Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Another Black Girl Podcast. This is your internet friend, Lauren, Lori, Laura, whatever. And for this episode, we have our special guest, Allison, on. You can find her at alignwithallison.com. I'm going to put it in the description and every other place that you might want to find it. This week's episode is about expectations. Thank you for your presence here, and thanks for tuning in. Now let's jump in. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for asking. And how are you?
I'm good. So I was reading your ebook, Move On, Sis, and step one was accept the fact that it didn't work out, and step two was stop boomeranging. So boomeranging was basically defined as
So it's a term that I made up. Clearly, that's not proper English or proper Australian English. If boomerang is even I don't know. Anywho, it's this idea of basically cycling through and going back and forth with your partner. Think of it like a rotating door. Stop that, right? If it's over, it's over. We are all adults here. And if someone is strong enough to formulate the words or behave like a single person, if they say it is over, then guess what? It's over. And if they behave like they're single, meaning they're dating other people, they don't talk to you for days on end, then it is still over. So we need to accept that. And instead of giving a person a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chance with no showing of change, then that's where it needs to be. So this boomeranging idea, like the boomerang you throw out and it comes back to you, stop that.
Okay, definitely dope. So when looking at step one, accepting the fact that it didn't work out, I feel like a lot of people, I'll just go off of me. In my previous dating life, I couldn't accept it because I had expectations of certain people, expectations of certain relationships with said people, and certain expectations of myself that contributed to me boomeranging. So I feel like step one and step two definitely go hand in hand. Today's episode is going to be about expectations in relationships. When I was researching for this episode, I came across this idea called the Pygmalion effect, and it basically states that an investigator's expectations about the outcome of a given study unwittingly affects the actual study outcome. So, for example, if I see two people and I see that one person might be working a little harder, or I believe that one person will do better at a certain task, unwittingly, according to the Pygmalion effect, I would be treating them better than the person who I thought would fail at a task. So I would treat them better. I would give them more opportunities to succeed. I would give them more accurate, helpful feedback. And I would do more teaching and communicating because I would truly believe that it was time well spent. So it's also called the self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think that this whole effect, the Pygmalion effect, definitely would take place at the beginning of a relationship. So in areas where you're still getting to know each other, where some people still call it the honeymoon or the cupcake phase or whatever it's called, while it's still new and fresh, I think that this would be the most seen and the most effective. So then in my research, as I continued to look up expectations in relationships, I came across this tweet, and it was saying that high expectations are the happiness killer. So of course, there were some comments of some bitter folks that were yeah, speaking specifically about Black women, saying that Black women's expectations are too high, and that's why we're single and undesirable. And I don't think that having high expectations is a happiness or a relationship killer. I just think that it's a little harder to find when you have higher expectations.
Right. It's definitely more difficult to find, obviously, right? The higher the expectation of anything, the more difficult it's going to be able to be found. I think the issue at hand isn't about if an expectation is too high or too low. That's not language that I like to use, even though I know that that's the popular terminology. What I like to say is your standard practical or realistic?
Okay.
That's what I like to talk in terms of, right? And so, well, then how do you measure whether or not a standard is practical or realistic? The way that I measure it is, do you have what you're looking for, or do you complement what you are looking for? If you have what you're looking for, or you can complement it, looking for it in someone else, then it is a realistic standard. So if I make the coveted $100,000, which is normally the conversation in Black Twitter, right? Then it's not too much for me to ask to say that I would only date gentlemen who have or who make that amount of money. But how dare me work at McDonald's flipping burgers and then saying, oh, every guy that I have, well, I shouldn't even say how dare me. I should not say, let me retract that. It is impractical that you would be in the circles and be around the types of people who make this, again, coveted $100,000, where in New York, by the way, $100,000 will help you get by. But in other places across the country and around the world, that obviously would be beneficial. So my measure is, do you have what you say that you want in a mate, or can you complement what you say that you want in a mate? If you have one of those two, if one of those two are accurate and true, then I believe that it is practical for you to ask for it, and you will probably find it. If you don't have those things, you can surely still have those standards. Good luck to you. And I wish you all the best, and you may eventually find it, but I think that the chances are slim. Not to none, just slim.
Okay, definitely. It's standard versus realistic, right?
That's what I say, creating realistic standards. Realistic
and that's
standards.
Fair.
And let's talk about money. I think so. And let's talk about money for a second. I think there's like some problematic logic in that same ideology of, you know, I make X amount of money, so my partner has to make the same. I feel like it's more important that the person has drive and a desire to hustle, to work hard, to open up a business, a side business or whatever, than it is their actual salary at that time. And the best way that I can compare it to is to a car. So I'm talking to my New Yorkers right now, because we have an appreciation for this. There are plenty of New Yorkers who don't have a car. There are plenty of New Yorkers, specifically people from New York City, who don't even have a driver's license. Right? And so just because you don't have a car right now, it doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to afford a car. It doesn't mean that you know what I mean? I have a car and I've been driving for, I don't know, 12, 13 years. If I got into an accident, God forbid, today, tomorrow I would tell somebody, nah, I ain't got a car, right? Does that mean that I don't have the capacity to also buy another one tomorrow? No. Does that mean that I don't have a desire to make sure that I can get to and fro easily without having to depend on Uber or mass transit? No. So I say all that to say that just because someone doesn't make that coveted X amount of dollars right now, that shouldn't really be your concern to me. And this is just my opinion. I'm more concerned about, do they have the capacity to make X amount of dollars so that we can live a comfortable life, over do they have it right now? Because if they can say, I make $150,000 and then they lose their job tomorrow. Look at COVID. Then what? So then you were going super hard to get this dude who makes X amount of dollars and he loses his job tomorrow. I need to know that you have the capacity to make X amount of dollars so that I can feel comfortable to know that we have the same plans and goals and desires in regards to building out this lifestyle that we see for each other. That's more important to me.
Definitely. That's good. I feel like that reminds me of, there was an episode of A Different World, and somebody asked Whitley what she like preferred, if she preferred like a rich man or a poor man. And she answered and was like, I prefer a man with high aspirations, who's a go-getter. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And then she said, like, a man or a person like that would never be broke. Well, not never, but would rarely be broke. And I feel like that's the same thing. So even outside of money, if there was a willingness to like, what else? Like pray. If there was a willingness to like communicate, if there was a willingness to do all of these other things, even though they might be down bad right now, and we're not about to kick people while they're down, but if somebody's down bad and you're trying to pursue a future with them, if they have that capability there, then it's definitely worth investing your time and your energy. So my next question is, when you find a partner, or if you find somebody who you think is a realistic mate and you're beginning a relationship, when and how should you express expectations?
So whatever your expectations are, those should be outlined during the dating process before commitment begins. So I'm going to give a really outrageous example, but this is one that always resonated with me when I was in high school. So, you know, we would have high school dances and, you know, I don't know what the kids are calling it these days, but you get a dub, right? Like when a girl is like rubbing her butt on the guy, right? And that's dancing at a party. I come from a Caribbean background where that's not necessarily a big deal. Like there can be a couple at the party and the guy is on one side dancing with girls and the girl's on the other side with her friends dancing with guys, and it's no big deal. For other people, that's a problem. They think it is inappropriate for you to be in a relationship with someone and you're dancing in that way at parties. So I remember having a conversation in high school with a guy who was displeased with his girlfriend for the way that she danced at a school dance. And I said, well, did you tell her that was your expectation? And and to be honest with you, I probably was 15 and saying this. Like, did you tell her that you had an expectation, that you have a standard, that you don't think that this is appropriate before the party? He said, no. Right. Well, then that's on you. Like, there needs to be a conversation about what your expectations or your standards are based on your experiences at the time. Now, mind you, again, I was in high school, so maybe he never got to a point in his life where that was even an issue to know to be proactive. And again, we were 15, so who's that proactive when they're 15? But now we're talking in adult circumstances, like you've lived enough to know some of the things that bother you and some of the things that aren't a big deal to you. And you need to express that before you commit. So then that way, if this person still chooses to violate that, that is their business, that you can then carry on and make a scene and argue, not in public, but you know what I mean? Because I told you that I have a problem with ABC. I expect you to, when you go out with your friends, you should be home before the sun rises. I told you that. Why is it 7:30 and you're trying to creep up in this house? Like, these are things that you should talk about before you're even committed, to make sure that both parties are on the same page. And then you move forward there. If the person says, nah, I believe that when I hang out with my friends, I come home, I'm a grown ass man, I can come home whenever I want to, then you decide whether or not you're going to accept it.
Right.
That's on you.
Do you feel like a first date, like a first meetup would be too soon to discuss?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I think in a first date, we're getting to know each other and to see if we have a basic alignment with our goals and values, like our life goals and values. Basic alignment are what those first dates are about. So I think that's something that happens over weeks and months in conversation. And it could be just as casual as this. Like, yo, when I was in high school, my girlfriend was dubbing on some dude in the back of the cafeteria, and that really bothered me. What are your thoughts on that type of dancing? Yo, I dated a chick. She would go to Trinidad Carnival every year with her friends, and I felt really uncomfortable about that costume and her wearing it outside, you know, with guys who could be pulling at her. What are your thoughts on that? And then you'll get an understand. I literally had that same conversation. I play mass with my friends.
Okay.
I go to Carnival with my friends. Everybody knows what the Carnival costume looks like. And so when my husband and I were casually talking, I said to him, like, what are your thoughts about Caribbean culture in regards to Carnival? Because that was a deal breaker for me. And I know that might seem menial to others, but that's a part of my culture. That's something I enjoy doing with my friends. I need to know this is going to be a big deal, because then the other valuable piece of that is that I'm asking you casually before we're committed. So it's no skin off my back whether or not that's a problem for you. Like, it's not like, oh, we've been together for 6 months and I met your mom and now I'm not going to break up with you over that. But dismissing you as a potential mate early in the game, good.
That's definitely a fact. I think in your book you said, in Move On, Sis, you said you can't expect your partner to be sensitive and understand exactly how you feel about something unless you're able to communicate to him or her how you feel in the first place. And so many relationships and so many arguments in relationships could be stopped, could be prevented if it would have just shown up in a conversation much earlier. And that transcends like romantic stuff, even like with parents, children, friends, like all kinds of relationships, the importance of communication and conversation. It's not all, but for a large portion of it, it's avoidable. So going back to this cupcake or like the beginning stages of a relationship, when I was talking about there's sort of like an enchantment, like the hype around like a new relationship, like before it gets like stale or kind of old or whatever. My next question around expectations was, is it disillusion or did someone just pick wrong? And I feel like this conversation about communication definitely answers that, because if the person did pick wrong, that means they didn't have the proper conversations at hand. And if it shows up in disillusion, it might be something else, but it could have been avoided with a conversation for the most part.
Yeah, like we're we're not going to lie and make it seem like everyone is 100% forthcoming all the time about their feelings on things, and the expectations that you're supposed to have known and asked the right series of questions. And so, right. But I think there are questions that you can ask early and hope and pray that the people that you're speaking to are forthcoming. There are no guarantees in this, right? Like what they say, love, what's the expression? Nothing's fair with love and war, right? Like there's no guarantees in this. You can vet someone, you could get a private investigator to investigate this person, and there's still some things that could have fallen through the cracks. But there are many times where some things, some heartbreak is avoidable. And especially to go back to what we talked about in regards to the boomeranging. So the third time that he broke his heart, he broke your heart. Guess what? He didn't break your heart. You broke your heart because you were foolish enough to allow this person back into your life when you knew that there was no actionable steps that were taken to rectify whatever went wrong in the first place. So he didn't break your heart. Your dumbass broke your own heart, and you deserve it because you allowed this person back in over and over and over again. So that is your choice. The beautiful thing is that in most cases, in the cases we're talking about, in healthy, when I say healthy relationships, I mean like non-abusive. So we're not talking about folks who are in abused cycle. We're talking about non-abusive relationships that just aren't working. You have choice. So you can choose to allow this person back in. You can choose to allow them to cheat on you repeatedly. But please keep in mind the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and every other time thereafter, you did it to yourself.
What is it? Fool me once.
Yeah, I don't even like saying that line because George Bush done ruined it. And then I think about J. Cole and then, whatever, right? Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you, whatever it is.
I feel like also, last thing, like you said with Carnival, when you're in mass, you spoke to your partner about it. Not that it's our business, but for an example, you started from a place and you started with questions about things that brought you joy. And a lot of times, some of my friends are like, yeah, like, I don't know what to ask when I'm like dating or like starting to like try to set up boundaries or try and figure out what's acceptable if we were to move forward in this relationship in terms of exclusivity and all that stuff. And I feel like starting from a place and asking questions about things that genuinely bring you joy. So like religion, politics, like all of the controversial things, all of the things that are important to you.
I think starting from a place of the things that find you joy absolutely work. But really, honestly, it really comes from a place of experience. Like I did not know to ask my husband when we were just friends about what are your thoughts about playing mass and Carnival until I dated a guy who said, I don't want you going to Trinidad with your friends. Oh, well, sucks to be you, too late, I'm going.
Bye.
Right? And it caused conflict. So I would not have even known to ask or to make that a qualifier for myself had I not experienced someone who saw it as a problem because it brings me joy. I don't see it as a problem. I could not have foreseen.
That's true.
Right? So I needed to know, like I had to go through it to even know that, this could potentially be an issue. And to be honest with you, he wasn't being outrageous. I can imagine from an outsider's perspective and some insiders, not all Caribbean people like Carnival, but I can especially imagine from an outsider's perspective, someone outside the culture, that, they would think that this is wild. Like you have on bra and pants and you jumping up and down in the heat with a whole bunch of dudes. Like I could imagine that. So I'm not even saying he's outrageous, but it just wasn't a good match for me.
And I mean, experience, it sucks. We break up. But we find new people, and you wouldn't have learned that about yourself or the way you move through relationships if you didn't endure and move past that. Not failure of a relationship, but the incompatibility. All right. So, Allison, please plug your socials.
So you can find me at alignwithallison.com, ALIGN with Allison, ALISON.com. You can find me on all major social media platforms at Align with Allison. That's on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse, Pinterest, YouTube, Twitch.
Oh, yeah. I was like, YouTube. We left that out last time. You're on Clubhouse?
Yeah, I'm on Clubhouse.
I'm about to add you.
I usually only do rooms like when invited because it's just so much. It's just so much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But
it can be a lot.
Yeah. Really, my home is Instagram. So I hope that Instagram doesn't ever get corny and become a MySpace because I love it.
Same. So her 2 books can be found, Move On Sis and The 10 Love Commandments, on her website, which is alignwithallison.com. Thank you so much, Allison, for being here.
Absolutely.
And you can catch us next week on Sunday at 12 a.m. All right, y'all. Peace.